the last time we talked about animals. This time we're going to talk about interdependence. You might remember the words food chains and food webs. Remember, these are just review centers. It's going over standards that you've already learned in science, but that you'll need to know again before the end of the year. So food chains. We start here with our plant. It's a producer. It takes the energy from the sun, changes it into chemical energy, and then produces its own energy to live. Producers are pretty much plants, right? Photosynthesis. They create their own food from the energy from the sun. Chemical energy, potential energy, all those things you now know to add into food chains. Then comes along a primary consumer. Primary consumers are either herbivores, remember herbivores only eat plants, or omnivores like us. We can eat plants, even though some of you don't like to eat your spinach, you can eat it. And we can eat meat, like, hot dogs. So here's our herbivore, our mouse. It's eating some of the plant there, that's why it's a little erased. And then we move on to the next part of this food chain. And we have a snake coming along. This is a secondary consumer. Primary, like first. Secondary, second. Our snake is going to eat the mouse. Now, again, our snake can either be an omnivore or a carnivore. Well, this snake, it's eating a mouse, it's definitely a carnivore, right? But it could be something that just eats meat or that eats meat and plants like we do. And finally, we get to our tertiary consumer. This is the fourth link in the food chain. 1, 2, 3, 4. This guy's the top of the food chain. We usually think about tertiary consumers as being panthers, bears, hawks, eagles, people, lions, top of the food chain. So this is my panda. Although Panda would never actually eat a snake, she'd probably run from it before she'd eat it. So she goes, oh, look, there's dinner. And she's going to eat that snake. She's going to be our tertiary consumer, the top of the food chain, the fourth step out in the food chain. This is going to have to be a carnivore or an omnivore. You're not going to have a herbivore eating another animal, and it has to be eating another animal if we're four ways out from the producer. Okay, and food webs are a lot like food chains. It's just taking this food chain and putting it in the environment, in the ecosystem with other food chains. So a food chain is just following one thing straight through. A food web shows all the interdependence and how this is linked to this one and this one's linked to that one and how they go back and forth. And so here's our food web. We have our flour that was eaten by the mouse, that was eaten by the snake, that was eaten by the cat. But that flour might have had some of it eaten by a squirrel. That squirrel would have eaten some grass. The snake could have eaten the squirrel after it ate the flour and the mouse. Oh, that'd be a very full snake when the cat ate it. The cat could have eaten another mouse. The insect could eat some grass. The snake could eat the insect. The cat could eat the grass. The cat could eat the mouse. The mouse could eat the grass. Lots of things going on here. And everything in a food web is connected. That's why when things are introduced to the environment that aren't supposed to be there, invasive species, it hurts our native species, the species that belong there. So let's go ahead and look at that. Invasive species. Invasive just means it doesn't belong there, it's been put there, or it's moved there, and it disrupts the whole ecosystem usually. Animals and plants have adapted to their unique environments. They have what they need to survive. When other species are introduced to that, they can kill off the other animals by eating them, or they can starve them off by using all of their resources, and they can kill or eat those native species that already belong there. One example that we have a lot of in Florida is kudzu. If you go up north Florida, if you drive up to the northern parts of the state, when they were putting in the highways, they realized there's all these blank bare roads. And it looked kind of ugly when they put in new highways. And since Florida is so much about tourism, they had to make it nice for the tourists. So what they did was they found this plant that grew really, really fast. And we've talked about kudzu before. It's a vine and it grows so fast. And they thought, oh, that'd be great. We'll just plant that there. And it'll grow and it'll be pretty and the tourists will love it. But you know what happened with kudzu, right? Kudzu grew all over everything. And it just kept going. And there's no natural predators of kudzu. Nothing in Florida eats it. No one harvests it. It just grows, and it grows so fast and so far that now we have plants that are just covered in these vines, and it strangles out those vines, and it steals all the resources from them out of the trees that it's on top of. So kutch has become a real problem of an invasive species in Florida. In the swamps, in the Everglades, see all the water, cypress trees, those are little cypress knots. You know my drawings, come on. So, in the Everglades, they had all this water, and they thought, you know what? If we can get all that water out of there, we can get even more tourists to come in the state, right? Right? Okay. So they found this tree that soaks up water really, really well. And they planted it. Oh, and they planted it. And they planted it. But then it started to take all the water. Not a little bit. It took a lot. And the other trees started to die because they didn't have enough water. So they had a great idea. Let's burn down these trees that we don't want. Burning, burning, burning. But when you burn the seeds from these trees, they just fly out, and they plant, and they pop up, and they grow back even stronger. So invasive plants have become a real big problem in our state. We have invasive plants. We have a lot of invasive species too. We have pythons, we have all kinds of things that are being released that shouldn't be released into the wild. So remember, if you ever have a pet that you can't have anymore and your parents say you can't have it, make sure you take it to a shelter or a vet or somewhere that can take it, and don't just release it into the habitats, because that can kill off our panthers and other native wildlife and plants. Okay, so that's all we have about interdependence and invasive species. I'll see you next time.